Plato, and he said, music is the movement of sound to reach the soul for the education of its virtue.
The second one is from the Bible, and it is how we should live, and how we should live. It says, in his love, he will no longer rebuke you, but will rejoice over your defeat. That's from Zechariah.
And then the last perspective, and a little bit later, but the last perspective is basically the kind of modern American or modern Western civilization perspective about music, which is this quote that says, music is what feelings sound like. So that was the first thing we looked at. The next thing we did was we researched 3 ancient Greek instruments. So
The first one is the syrinx, which is one that went into the most accident through Dave. The syrinx through the years into a harmonica.
The second instrument that we researched was the aloes, which is basically a double-reeded instrument. You blow through the top and stop up your fingers. Eventually that ended up evolving into the clarinet. The aloes was the instrument of the god Dionysus, who, as Darren said, was the god of wine. Also basically like the god of mariners and partying. And the aloes was actually often played during Greek dithyrambics, which were basically Greek poem recitations, and they were also a little bit like plays. So that was the second instrument we looked at.
The third one is the kithara, which is a large version of a lyre. It is the national instrument of Greece, and I think somebody made one, and I think it's back there somewhere. Or somebody made a lyre, sorry. And what comes from that is guitar, and the word guitar actually comes from the word kithara.
Okay, so the next thing that we did was we researched 3 different perspectives about music. First, we researched the ancient Greek perspective on music, and then we compared and contrasted it with the biblical or the Christian perspective of music, and then the modern American or modern Western civilization perspective about music. So we found a couple similarities and a couple differences. The third thing that we looked at was just music's influence, and in all 3 of these groups, these perspectives, all 3 of them believed that music had definite influential powers. The ancient Greeks probably the most so, although it's not independent. But there are instances in the Bible where music I'm thinking about King David playing his lyre for King Saul, just to calm him down. And also, in modern America, obviously music can influence those who both create the music and who listen to the music. The next thing that we looked at was censorship in terms of music. And the ancient Greeks, since they did believe that music was so influential, also believed that music should be very closely censored. They believed that it could really turn you into the person that you were going to become, and so not just anybody could listen to just any kind of music. The biblical perspective about censorship in terms of music is less that music is inherently good or evil, but that it's more how you use it. And obviously music is used many times in the Bible in very, very good ways. A lot of times in the Psalms, music is used for God's glorification and praise and prayer to God. But we also found an instance where music was used for kind of a wrong reason. This is Exodus 32:17. And this is right after Moses has just received the 10 Commandments. He's come off the mountain, and he's about to find his people worshiping the idol that was made. And it says, when Joshua heard the noises of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. But he said, it is not the sound of shouting for victory or the sound of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing that I hear. And as soon as he came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, Moses' anger burned hot, and he threw the tablets out of his hands and broke them at the foot of the mountain. So this is basically an instance where music can be used for the wrong reason. And then the modern American view is that pretty much all censorship is harmful and it suppresses the self-expression of the one who is creating that music. The next thing that we looked at was music's purpose. In ancient Greece, music was basically used for 4 purposes. For education, for releasing emotions or catharsis, for developing the mind, especially of children, and then in adults only for recreation. Aristotle said those 4 things in his Politics. The biblical Christian perspective for the purpose of music is that it's basically a praise to to God, glorification of God, and also a communication and a prayer to God. And then in modern America, music is used mainly for the entertainment of those listening to music and the self-expression of those who are creating the music. And then we had a couple more. The next one is relation to religion. In ancient Greece, music was very, very often related to religion. There would be many instruments that were related to certain gods or associated with certain gods. There were many different kinds of music that were supposed to be played at specific religious rituals. So music was very, very related to religion. Not all music, but most music was related to religion. And in the Bible, of course, music is related to religion, and not just religion, it's related to your kind of personal communication and your personal relationship to God. And in modern America, music is basically unrelated to religion. There is religious music, but music itself, it really is not associated with religion.
Most people don't find it as a way to communicate with God.
Right, right. And then the next thing that we found, which is just pretty general, was that music in all three of these perspectives could express many emotions and thoughts. The ancient Greeks actually had what they called modes, which were they would be our major and minor, except that they had multiples of them that could express pretty much every kind of emotion that was out there. And then the last thing that we saw was the importance of scale in these three perspectives. In ancient Greece, musical skill was very, very important. You were supposed to know technicalities of being able to play something, know musical theory was very important, even if you didn't play an instrument. Knowing the skill behind it was very, very important. The biblical perspective in terms of that, while we do want to play beautiful music to God, it is seen that the heart with which you play music matters more than skill. And lastly, in modern America, as we see sometimes, the skill is a lot less important than self-expression.
And especially in modern America, fake skill is seen highly. Because even though we know somebody can't really perform music very well, even if they're using things to enhance their voice, we still idealize them.
And then Lauren's going to talk a little bit about the strings.
The sirens is in Mount Oregon, originated from Greece. There are three main kinds of sirens. This is an original one. It's how we made ours. They cut the bamboo or reed in different sizes and stopped it with the same amount of wax on each one. The second one is one they drill the same amount or the same length of holes and with different amount of wax, and so that produces different notes. And the third one we thought was interesting because it is basically two of the original ones, which is how they produce more notes. They usually have 5 to 7 pipes, and they are used by the instrument. They're the instrument of the god Pan. And Pan is the god of classical music, and they use by And now, we're like proud of being
it was really shady of us to talk, actually did. And then we attached these out with raffia after we had drilled holes. And that was, so anyway, 2 weeks ago, like, so anyway, these are the ones and we can play them more for you. We like to play them a lot, so yeah, I know more for you if you're
We're pretty proud.
Yeah.
Encore.
We were gonna play the minor version, we couldn't figure out the major version, so we're like that would be something. So the next thing we saw were 3 instruments.
Okay, so the instruments that come from even the pipe organ, we think of really old, and we don't see it as like it would come from something we think some other things would originate from it. So the things that come from the pan pipe or sirens.
Okay, so we have 2 videos we want to show you. First one is basically just a really kind of traditional pan pipe player. I actually chose him because, okay, I'm going to get his name wrong, so I'm going to try to pronounce it, but he nicknamed himself Sirens. So that was why we kind of, this is a very kind of traditional pan pipe player. He's actually, you'll notice, playing on this version of the sirens, which basically makes it a little bit more curved, and it's diagonal. It goes up diagonally. So and it's like 10 at the end. So just click right there. That doesn't work. Here, can you just start it back at the beginning? And here I have to start back.
Amanda, did you select your lengths of pipes to any particular length?
We did. Oh, that, sorry. Which is even better. And he had,
We weren't too sure about them, so we actually tested them as we made them with a tuner, and I think all of them match exactly right, except for my F is an F sharp. It's not an F. Or F. So, yes.
Two things, a comment, I really appreciate your enthusiasm for it. You said, we were really excited about this, or really excited about that. The second thing is when you were looking at music and from the biblical perspective, it is more from the heart. Whatever we do, we're supposed to do it excellently. Our heart's in the wrong place. How would you address that?
I think that they're doing it as excellently as they can. And I think that's what the Bible means. And maybe you shouldn't use that to go up and perform in front of other people for God's glory. But if you're sitting in the pew singing hymns, then you shouldn't be ashamed of that.
You wouldn't put them on center stage.
Right.
Also, like, that's how way God created you.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Oh, me? What did you think, like, with juxtaposing Greek music, views, and modern opinions of music, which line to be, like, more in line with truth?
I mean, I feel like they're both pretty far off, to be totally honest. So, because both of them are for, like, man's own glory. So the Greek perspective is how to better yourself for, like, your own personal gain. And the modern view is how to make yourself happy and make make other people happy. So,
Kind of like Ashley was in with her dress, the Greek wasn't necessarily to glorify even their gods, it was just to make themselves look better.
yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of what the music was. So one of them is, like, really close at all to the truth. They're both trying to, like, glorify someone else.
Yes. Mr. Richardson, or?
Oh, go ahead, John.
Have you guys learned how to play like him yet?
No, we haven't.
Yeah, she's gonna do that. She'll do that next time.
You said that the Greeks, they saw some additional purposes to music, one of them being instruction. When you looked at this from the biblical perspective, you said it was, the only reason you gave there was for the praise of God. Did you see anything at all in terms of what the Bible might say about uses of music?
I think that there were other things in terms of being able to grow as a person through music, and I think he grows a lot like through playing music, and he learns a lot through that. But it all ultimately kind of comes back to the point of glorifying God. So that was why that was what we put up, because even though there are other uses for music, those uses always end up being about God.
Thank you, ladies.